Welcome everyone to my channel. For my first video, I decided to do the Battery on the southern tip of New York City, named after the artillery batteries positioned there to protect the settlement behind it, which originally was called New Amsterdam. I entered through the South Cove to the left and continued through the Battery Park until I got on the Staten Island Ferry. Crossing into Staten Island, I spent about 2 hours there, by which point I returned back to Manhattan and walked all the way to the end of Battery Park on the right, and made my way back a little to the north. The whole trip took me about 7 hours, and I highly recommend it, although I would first choose great comfortable shoes and plenty of water and snacks. Otherwise, you will look like me at the end and people will think you hiked the Sahara Desert. My day began with crossing the Brooklyn Bridge on Sunday, 7 a.m. No cars, no traffic, not even a seagull in sight. Those that do this weekly know the feeling. It's beautiful. It brings tears to your eyes. This alone was worth the trip. Another benefit of coming to Manhattan Sunday morning is parking. I got out of my car and I am next to the Freedom Tower. When I was still in school doing my doctorate degree, I used to teach courses here once in a while and look at the view I had every time I went inside the building. Right next to the Freedom Tower. That was awesome. It is a beautiful building and area, but it deserves to have its own separate video in the future, as there is a lot to explore. Not just the building itself, but the memorial, the museum. Nearby, there is a small portion of the Berlin Wall. Many museums, like the Jewish Heritage Museum, Police Museum, Museum of American Indian. So there's a lot. And I would like to keep my videos to less than 30 minutes, as I know it is more convenient to watch as opposed to longer videos. Therefore, if you ever feel like I missed something or would like me to explore something in more detail, please send an email, write a comment, and I will try to do so in my future videos. There's plenty of places to play with kids and to do some valuable and enjoy the views at the same time. So let's take a short walk along the Hudson River while enjoying some views of New York City skyline and New Jersey on the other side of the Hudson. As you walk, there is also plenty of art to look at as well. And in few places, we have emergency rings, which have a life preserver and rope in case someone falls into the water. I love these blue lights along the waterway, which pay tribute to the city's port heritage. Here we have Pier A, built from 1884 to 1886, now a landmark. It was originally built as headquarters of New York City Board of Dock Commissioners, which oversaw docks and piers, and the New York City Police Department's Harbor Department. This is how it looked like in 1952. Here is an image from the 70s, possibly early 80s. And today, standing the test of time. Next to it, on the sidewalk, you can see some marks. For instance, the shoreline in 1877, as most of this area was water and filled in over the years by landfill and soil left over after building the Twin Towers and the surrounding buildings. Close to it is the American Merchant Mariners Memorial, dedicated to all the merchant mariners who served America from the Revolutionary War to the present. Here we have the Korean War Memorial, which is really interesting because on the ground it shows the number of casualties of countries which participated in the conflict. And here we have Castle Clinton, also known as Castle Garden. In this photo from 1953, you can see it standing in the back. It was built in 1811 as the Southwest Battery, which had 28 cannons in preparation for the 1812 war with the British, although it saw no action as a military fortification. In 1815, it was renamed Castle Clinton, and shortly afterwards, 1823, the US Army transferred it to New York City, and it was renamed Castle Garden, which was used for various purposes by the city, like a concert venue, for example. In 1855, it was used as an immigration landing depot before the Ellis Island opened up, and it had over 8 million people that went through its gates from 1855 to 1890. Shortly afterwards, in 1896, it became an aquarium, and today it houses the National Park Service Visitor Center. Inside, you can see the evolution of the area from 1812 to 1941, which is cool. Rather recently, colonial-era walls were found below ground, which are believed to be built somewhere around 1750s. Here next to it, we have a bronze sculpture dedicated to the immigrants who came through this area while it was active as an immigration depot. As we continue onwards, we see East Coast Memorial honoring American servicemen who died in the Atlantic in World War II. Here are two photos from 1963 when it was first opened to the public. The monument is positioned in a direct line of sight to the Statue of Liberty, which is really nice, a strong sense of symbolism in itself. From this location, well, a little to the right, closer to Castle Clinton, is where you board boats for Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty tours. You can always just stroll through the park itself, which is a nice, relaxing experience. Here we have a fish-themed carousel and a fantastic playground. Honestly, at this point, it was very tempting not to jump in on some of those slides and feel like a 10-year-old again. But now I'm a YouTuber and my feet need to take me forward. Of course, there's plenty of bikes to rent, which is great. Behind the bike rental is the U.S. Coast Guard Recruitment Office and the U.S. Coast Guard Memorial. In the background, we see the Staten Island Ferry. So let's get on it and take a small trip to the next borough. Inside, there are restrooms, lots of food options, and these old school telephones, which you no longer see anymore, which is kind of nice. This is the inside of the ferry. It's free and a great way to see amazing images of not just Manhattan, but also the Statue of Liberty. You know that nervous feeling of driving a car and a police car is behind you? I never thought I will experience it on water in a boat, but being followed for about 10 minutes by the New York police boat, it sort of gives you that feeling. But it did give me a really cool photo. Again, Staten Island and locations here are for future videos, but once you get off the ferry, you are looking at the Staten Island Marriage Bureau building. A courthouse. And Empire Outlets to do some shopping. You can also walk along the waterfront and see beautiful images of Manhattan. And there is a 9/11 memorial. Now it is time to go back and you can revisit the Statue of Liberty or sit on the other side of the ferry and enjoy the scenery from Brooklyn or the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, which connects Brooklyn and Staten Island together.
At the terminal.
Here we have Battery Maritime building, which includes a 5-star hotel built from 1906 to 1909. And a heliport. Unfortunately, I'm not a millionaire, so I cannot catch a ride from here home. I need to walk back to my car. But along the way, I saw a statue of John Ericsson, who was a Swedish inventor and designed ships for the US Navy, including the USS Monitor, which was built in Brooklyn and served during the Civil War. My last stop was the control house built in 1904-1905, which is used as an exit entrance to the subway and one of the original stations built for the city's first subway line. And here we have cool photos of older, smaller buildings surrounded by modern skyscrapers. A lot of this is actually what's happening in Brooklyn today. But you see this mixture of the old and the new. As I walked closer to my car, I also came across some road work where you can see the complexity of working in an environment like this. And you get a glimpse at the old New York below. I hope all of you enjoyed this small little tour of the Battery, and I will see you next week on the island. Those of you who live here for a while, you know exactly what I mean. But until then, have a safe, adventurous week. Take care, everyone.